Peace be with you. Welcome to the Institute of All Intelligent Life. My name is Allan Keislar, and I'm continuing the class about extraterrestrial spirituality, beginning with some descriptions from Michael Salla's book, Exposing U.S. Government Policies on Extraterrestrial Life. And today we're going to talk about official agreements with extraterrestrials. I had previously discussed this in an Urdu chat last week, but I've not discussed it in English yet, so I'm going to take that up today. We'll begin with a little meditation. Allah, 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 Adonai, 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 Ram, 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 Ikumkar, 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 no, 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 Toini, 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 Toini. These are very difficult topics that we are discussing, so it's good to get our minds a little peaceful before we approach the idea that not only the United States, but this book is about the United States government having official meetings with extraterrestrials and making official agreements with them, which often are not so favorable for us, for human beings, because the extraterrestrials are technologically more advanced than we are. Just the fact that they're able to travel here from distant stars is evidence that they are technologically very advanced compared to our common knowledge, at least, about science. So this may be a little disturbing, but these are the facts that we are being reported to by Michael Salla from different, mostly military witnesses. So I'll show you this book again. Exposing U.S. Government Policies on Extraterrestrial Life by Michael Salla, Ph.D. And last week we had read about President Eisenhower's meetings with extraterrestrials, which started in 1954. And now we're going to continue reading about the official agreements, and beginning with Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso, who was a military intelligence officer, a former battalion commander, decorated for his service in the military, and he also served in the Eisenhower administration as a military liaison, and finished his military career as head of Foreign Technology Desk for the U.S. Army from 1961 to 63, where he claimed he was responsible for seeding extraterrestrial technologies in select corporations for development. In other words, the American government and military had obtained some extraterrestrial craft, extraterrestrial instrumentation, and they gave it to different corporations, aerospace corporations or communications corporations, different engineering corporations for development, for back engineering. And Corso was involved in that. So Corso tells about how the extraterrestrials sort of could set the terms of these treaties or these agreements because they knew that we could not fight with them because their technology was much more advanced than ours, so they could dictate the terms. They also knew that we human beings, the military, at least in government of the United States, did not want the people of the world to know about the extraterrestrials' presence. So this enabled the extraterrestrials to have the upper hand. So that is an unpleasant fact, but we must recognize this is actually what has happened. And Salla next talks about William Cooper, who had earlier in this book talked about Eisenhower's meeting with extraterrestrials. And this is what Cooper said about the agreement that the United States government made with the extraterrestrials. The treaty stated that the aliens would not interfere in our affairs, and we would not interfere in theirs. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret. They would furnish us with advanced technology and would help us in our technological development. They would not make any treaty with any other Earth nation. They could abduct humans on a limited and periodic basis for the purpose of medical examination and monitoring of our development, with the stipulation that humans would not be harmed, would be returned to their point of abduction, would have no memory of the event, and that the alien nation would furnish Majesty 12 with a list of all human contacts and abductees on a regularly scheduled basis. So this Majestic 12 was a group of 12 men who were assigned by the United States government to coordinate and lead this interaction with extraterrestrials. So this is another source of information. William Cooper, who was involved also in these secret arrangements with extraterrestrials for how we were going to deal with them and they were going to deal with us. Dan Sherman is another person who worked in a secret NSA communications project, who confirms that there was an agreement made between the United States government and extraterrestrials that contained elements that were very distasteful to the whistleblowers who learned about them. In other words, they were like the government, the American government gave permission to extraterrestrials to abduct human beings for medical or scientific experimentation and to monitor our development. Charles Hall is another person involved in the U.S. Air Force from 63 to 67, 1963 to 67, and he was in communication with tall whites. He would meet them and with senior military leaders. These tall whites are different from the grays, who are the most well-known extraterrestrials. These tall whites also had agreements with the American government in which they made promises to the American government, and the American government made promises to them that they would not harm the human beings, specifically Charles Hall, who was interacting with them. And he said that these tall whites kept their agreements very well, and they expected the United States government also to keep their agreements. So this is another very important point, that the U.S. Air Force, which was interacting with the tall whites, they supplied them with food, with clothing, and even built a large hangar or base for them. It's quite amazing. Now, Dr. Michael Wolff was another person who was said to have been working on secret projects with extraterrestrials. And he also says that the team that he was working with, a top secret Alpha Com team, whose responsibility was to prepare human beings for extraterrestrial knowledge about the extraterrestrial presence. So this team that Dr. Wolff worked on, he says, arranged negotiations with visiting star nations, and the U.S. administration entered into an agreement, discussions agreeing with the Zetas, so-called Greys, who are from the fourth planet of the star system Zeta Reticuli, as well as with other star nations. But Dr. Wolf said these agreements were never constitutionally ratified. That is, the United States Congress was supposed to agree with any, support and sign off on any treaties that the government made, but they never did. This was never shared with the Congress. So Dr. Wolf also says that these Zetas, they shared certain technological advances with the government scientists. And so there's more and more evidence coming from different whistleblowers and different witnesses. Paul Benowitz was another electronics communication specialist who had a number of U.S. patents for his in his company, and he also had discovered, because he was monitoring electronic communications in conjunction with the sightings of UFOs and abduction of civilians in the vicinity of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when he relayed to the Air Force the electronic intercepts that he had, as part of his company's work, he had discovered, the Air Force tried to discredit him and did not support his work. Although another agency of the United States government, the NSA, National Security Agency, did fund his continued electronic study. So it's interesting that different government agencies within the United States government have different positions on at least certain people who are interacting with them regarding alien life and alien knowledge. So this is what Paul Benowitz wrote. It is important to note at the outset that the alien is devious, employs deception, and have no intent of any apparent peacemaking process, and obviously does not adhere to any prior arrangement. So Benowitz was of the opinion that at least those aliens that he was monitoring, the so-called Greys, they were not trustworthy at all. And although they engaged in some agreements and made some promises, they didn't follow them. And he said that that's because some of their members of their society or their species were captured, 8 of them, and the first 8 who were captured, they died. So there was not a very good relationship between that group of aliens and the... Sorry, my signal keeps getting cut off. So I'm going to reread this. During the course of speaking with extraterrestrials and our interactions with them from the 1950s onward, there have been a series of treaties established between the Americans and the aliens. As a consequence of our relationship with them, there have been more than one treaty system in place. During the last one of those treaty negotiation and signing times, I had the privilege of being in the presence of the negotiators at the conference which was held in the state of New Mexico. So Burrish was actually present during the negotiation between the Americans and the Orions. These were the Greys, who were from the star system, a star system located in the Orion constellation, and he calls them the Orions. And they kind of looked down on us. They considered us very primitive. And so they were able to inflict this treaty on us. They were able to demand how we would act. So, in other words, another witness who was present in the negotiations observed that they could practically force us to accept their conditions because they were in a much more technologically advanced position, and we couldn't really fight with them. And finally, Phil Schneider is another witness. He was a civil engineer who was engaged in constructing deep underground military bases. And he claims that he had seen uh, documents and other material that substantiated his claims about extraterrestrial interaction with the United States government. And he actually knew that he would be intimidated and killed if he spoke publicly, but he decided to anyway. And in fact, he was killed in January 1996. He was found dead under very suspicious circumstances, Dr. Salla writes. So Schneider claims that secret governments were entered into with extraterrestrials by the U.S. government back in 1954. And he wrote, back in 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, the federal government decided to circumvent, again I got cut off, so I'm going to reread something here, that the United States government formed a treaty with aliens called the 1954 Grenada Treaty, or Grenada Treaty, I'm not sure, which basically made the agreement that the aliens involved could take a few cows and test their implanting techniques on a few human beings, but that they had to give details about the people involved. Slowly, the aliens altered the bargain until they decided they wouldn't abide by it at all. So there are quite a number of witnesses who have written, testified that they either participated in negotiations with aliens or they read about the agreements that had been reached. And evidently, at least most of these seem to be talking about the agreement with Greys from the Orion star system, Zeta Reticuli star system, or in the Orion constellation. And they were not very favorable agreements for the American government or for the human beings, because we were obliged to accept their conditions since they were in a stronger position. So that's the end of what I'm going to read from Dr. Salla's book. Muhammad Asif, I'm reading comments, says theory. Yes, you may. This is a theory, but there's a lot of evidence for this theory. And there's a lot more evidence than what I've read. But this is just a number of witnesses who have either personally observed or have read about in secret documents. They've read about these agreements with extraterrestrials. Musab Ali says Bob Lazar as well. Yes, Bob Lazar was another scientist who was involved in back engineering extraterrestrial technology, and he also read about in the secret documents that he was given to prepare him for this work of back engineering extraterrestrial craft. He was told about secret agreements between the American government and extraterrestrials. So thank you, Musab Ali Saib, for mentioning Bob Lazar. He's a very, very important witness. Muhammad Asif asks, do you believe ancient aliens? Yes. Not everything in that Ancient Alien series, but yes, certainly there were aliens present on our planet thousands of years ago, maybe millions of years ago, but there's an awful lot of evidence. There's even paintings made hundreds of years ago, before there was any photography, paintings made of extraterrestrial craft. And of course there were very ancient paintings in caves. But I'm talking about even just a few hundred years ago when there was high quality art being made in Europe. And in fact, some of the religious paintings of Jesus or Mary, and there are actually extraterrestrial craft pictured in those paintings. So there have definitely been aliens coming to this planet for a long time. So there were ancient aliens, yes. Faisal Shafiq, is there any source to confirm that how much far away human traveled in space till now is travel outside our sun system or galaxy? Yes, there is. A good source is Corey Goode. He participated in a secret space program himself, and he in fact traveled to Mars and other parts of our solar system. I don't know if he traveled outside of our solar system, but he did know about people who had, and he had a lot of information. So you can look up, let's see, I'm trying to remember. He has given a lot of information about human beings traveling beyond our solar system to other stars, and I believe, I don't know about to other galaxies, but certainly to a number of stars outside of our solar system, to planets around those stars where there are extraterrestrials living. And human beings are trading right now. They are doing trade with people from other stars, the solar systems beyond ours. Okay, Irfan Haidar Sipra. Sir, you are looking tired. I am a little tired. I've been doing a lot recently, but I'm okay. My health is not real good, but I'm okay. Abdo Shoko Nagi says, Salam alaikum. How are you, Grandpa? I am very well, thank you. I'm happy that I'm able to do this work of sharing information about extraterrestrials because I think it's very, very important for all of us to learn more and more about this and understand it correctly. Musab Ali says, can you talk more about Corey Goode's story? When and how did humans leave the solar system? Corey Goode is not the only one. Others have also talked about it. I think the first people, the first human beings to leave the solar system, at least in our recent history, were the Germans. In the 1930s or 1940s, they were in contact with some extraterrestrials who gave them technology, and they developed not only space flight to the moon and Mars and beyond, but they also, as I understand it, were able to travel outside of our solar system, perhaps in the 1940s. Corey Goode has given information, I think it was in the 1950s when the United States first went to the moon, not NASA's program that we all know about, but the secret space programs had even before then gone to the moon and Mars. And I don't know the exact time, but perhaps in the 60s or 70s, the United States military developed spacecraft that were able to go to other star systems also. And they also developed teleportation and time travel. We're talking about 40, 50 years ago. So human beings, not only Americans, people from other countries also are involved in these secret space programs that have been going to other star systems outside of our solar system. Okay, Abdo Shokonagi says he unintentionally posted some memes. That's okay, don't worry about it. This is such important information that I don't consider things like that I don't take those things seriously, even if it was intentional. Many people criticize what I'm doing and they think it's a joke or they just can't believe it. But as I've said many times, I have met extraterrestrials myself. I have seen extraterrestrials from a number of different races, and so I know they're real. And it's important for us to all human beings need to learn about this. And this is a very, very important book, which I strongly advise everybody to read. I'm going to show it to you one more time before we end the conversation. It is Exposing U.S. Government Policies on Extraterrestrial Life by Michael E. Salla. So this may not be for sale in Pakistan or wherever you're living, but you should be able to purchase it from the internet. I strongly recommend not only this book, but many other books by Michael E. Salla. I strongly recommend at least you go onto his website, which is exopolitics.org, do a search for Michael Salla, and you'll find out a lot of very, very good information from many different trustworthy sources. Okay. Abdo Shoko Nagi, are you from Japan? I'm trying to figure out where that name is from. I really appreciate your podcast, especially the English ones. Thank you very much for appreciating what I'm doing. A lot of people don't, but it is very, very important. Awais Katana says, Sir, are you Muslim? Yes, I'm Muslim. I believe in Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad as a prophet of God. I also believe in all religions. I believe there is only one God. He is called Allah. He has many different names also. And that one God has produced or created or been the source of many religions, not only Islam and Christianity and Judaism, but other religions also were originally started by divine messengers from God. All religions have had some misunderstandings and the changes in them, but I believe in them all. Yes. So Abdo Shoko Nagi says, I can understand English, only understand English and Arabic. Oh, so your name sounded Japanese to me, but maybe you're Arab. Okay. Hawais Katana says, I want you to be a Muslim, sir. I am a Muslim. As I've said many times, I recite not only La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah daily. I have done that for many years, 10 years. But I also recite the namaz at least Fajr. Every morning I rise early and recite the full namaz, and also prayers of other religions, like the Lord's Prayer, the 23rd Psalm in English, and Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, Sikh prayers and mantras, as well as of other religions. And that's my daily practice. So I definitely am a Muslim. I have been told by respectable authorities that I am a real Muslim. And many people who consider themselves Muslims actually don't understand the real meaning of Islam, but I do. That's what I've been told by, I shouldn't say who, but I will, because I have had ziyarat of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he personally told me that I really understand Islam, and many Muslims don't really understand Islam. Islam doesn't mean what most Muslims think. Most Muslims have a very narrow understanding of Islam, but actually Islam means love. Islam means peace. Islam means justice. Islam means truth. Islam is the real, eternal religion of God. And all religions really are part of Islam. So, I am a Muslim, a real Muslim, according to the Holy Prophet himself. He told me that. All right, Awais Katana, maybe I shouldn't have said that. People will think I'm crazy, but that happened to me. Okay. Babla, English bhi bhul lete hain, wah. Bhol lete hain, हाँ. मैं तो अमेरिकन हूँ, अंग्रेजी मेरा मादरी ज़बान है. Okay. Awais Katana, are you a CIA agent? LOL. Central Intelligence Agency. The real Central Intelligence Agency is Allah's intelligence agency, because he's the real center of everything. So I'm his agent. This American CIA is actually a very dangerous institution. Although it's getting better now, it was controlled for many, many decades by very evil, selfish, satanic people. And many CIA agents were doing very, very bad work, undermining democratic governments around the world, like the Iranian government in 1953. A democratically elected Prime Minister Mossadegh was removed by the CIA. And they have done the same thing in many countries. Fortunately, in the recent past, the CIA, some good people have come into the CIA, and they're removing the evil, selfish agents of the evil, selfish controllers of the CIA. So there's a big struggle going on right now in America, not only in the CIA, but in the American government. And hopefully, I have faith that God will succeed in the program of getting rid of the evil in the world, in the CIA, and so then it won't be an embarrassment to be associated with the CIA as it is right now. I would hate to be called a CIA agent, because most of the things the CIA has done over the past 60, 70 years have been very, very evil. And not really in America's interest either, but in the interest of the secret controllers of not only America, but of most governments in the world. That is the so-called Illuminati, the so-called one world, new world order people. But now the real God-fearing people are kicking them out, taking over the world from those selfish satanic people. That's my understanding of what's happening right now. So, बाबा जी कोई हमारी बात भी सुनो अवैस खतना साहब हाँ मैं सुनने के लिए तैयार हूँ आप बताइए but right now I'm speaking in English today. Every Saturday I have this chat at 8 p.m. Pakistan time, 8 a.m. California Daylight Savings Time, and so please come to the Urdu chat on Saturdays if you want to speak in Urdu. Okay, we do have Sheikh Rahi. Assalamu alaikum. कीज़लर साहिब मैं उर्दू भी पढ़ता हूँ और बोलता हूँ लेकिन अभी हम अंग्रेज़ी में Today is an English chat. The Urdu chats are on Saturday. Abdu Shoko Nagi, do aliens believe in God? Oh, very good question. Yes. Most aliens that I know of, at least, not only believe in God, but are very sincere and loving followers of God. In fact, in my experience, even the ones that aren't that good, they know there is a supreme source of everything. And they may not like God. They may be selfish themselves, and so they don't really want to serve God, but they know about God. It's quite an unusual circumstance on our planet where people don't know whether there is a God or not. There are a lot of atheists, and they say there is no God. Most aliens, the good ones, certainly know there is a God, and they are doing their best to follow the teachings of God and serve God and even help other people. They're preaching the message of Islam. You can say that Islam simply means surrender to God, the peace that comes from surrendering to God. So most aliens do believe in God, and a lot of them, most of them, I don't know what percentage, but maybe 75 or maybe 90% of them are good. They are faithful followers of God, and then there is a good number also, maybe 10% to 25%, I don't know, who are evil. They're selfish. And they know there's a God. And they're fighting against God even, or working against. But most of them know that there is a God. That's strange that on our planet so many people are confused about whether there's a God or not. Maybe because there have been so many false ideas about God promoted also. But in any case, in my experience, aliens know that there is a God. They know that God is the supreme authority. They know they're obliged to do whatever God orders. And some of them like that, and some of the evil ones don't like that fact, but they are aware of it. Maybe some places there are people who don't know there's a God, but most places people do. Most aliens are well aware of the existence of God. Okay, let's see if there are any other good questions or comments. Allan Keislar, what about Iran and American war? Oh, very good question. And you won't believe what I'm going to say, but I'm going to tell you what I understand, the truth about Iran and American war. Iran, of course, is a very good country. The people of Iran are very cultured. They are religious. They're pious. They're very intelligent, like Pakistanis also, and like many people in the world. But the Iranians are actually very cultured. They're sophisticated people. They are spiritual people. But the government of Iran has been manipulated by the CIA, believe it or not. The government of Iran has been very despotic for a long time. Since Mossadegh was removed in 1953, he was a very good man, democratically elected prime minister. He was removed by the evil forces in the CIA, and then since that time, they have had a lot of control. When they realized that they could no longer control Iran and the Iranian people by the Shah, then they were involved in, to some extent, replacing him by Khomeini. And they, in fact, infiltrated throughout the Iranian state and have had tremendous influence. And because of that, now, I said you're not going to believe all this, but the Obama administration was also controlled by the same evil people. And therefore, Obama, whether he himself was wanting to do it or not, he was obliged to do it or whatever, he went along with this CIA program to make a deal with Iran so that Iran would actually be able to develop nuclear weapons, even though on the surface this was a program to control the Iranian nuclear program. Actually, secretly, you might say, or unannouncedly, they gave a lot of money to Iran, Obama did, and they made provisions so that in time Iran would actually be developing nuclear weapons because they wanted that. The CIA was involved in this one world order Illuminati project to create, not only in Iran, but in North Korea also, states where nuclear weapons could be used and threatened to fulfill the purpose of the one world order. In other words, they wanted to destroy Russia. They wanted to destroy the United States because they were not able to control these countries. So what is happening right now is that just like what happened in North Korea, you may not believe this also, but the CIA, the Illuminati, the One World Order people, they were controlling North Korea. And they were intentionally developing nuclear weapons there to use as a threat to the good people of the world. And President Trump has managed, because he is a good man, even though people often think he's not, that President Trump is a God-fearing man. He's an American patriot, and he is working against the CIA, the evil people in the CIA and the One World Order. And President Trump managed to get, just in the past few days, we've learned it succeeded, he managed to get Kim, the premier of North Korea, to give up the nuclear program. He and the American military working with him removed the evil CIA agents in North Korea who were controlling and were threatening Kim. So he was obliged to do what they said. But Trump and the military, the American military, good people in the American military, removed the evil CIA agents who were controlling Kim, so he became free to do what he really wanted to do, which was to develop North Korea as part of the world community, not as an evil dictatorial state. He was not free to do what he wanted to do. So now he has agreed to curtail the North Korean nuclear program. He's promised now he's going to stop all the interballistic missile testing and even close down the main nuclear base in North Korea. So this is what's happening now in Iran also. The very same thing that happened in North Korea is now happening in Iran. That is, the evil CIA agents who have been working with and obliging the Iranian government to be so dictatorial. And the people of Iran are not free. The people of Iran are being controlled by the government. So that's under the CIA's control. So the American military, working together with President Trump, and the good people in the CIA have been removing those evil CIA agents who were working on behalf of the one world, new world order, so-called Illuminati. And now Trump is acting the same way he acted with North Korea. He was very, very strong and threatening. So he's threatening Iran. He's not threatening the people of Iran, actually. He's threatening the evil CIA agents and assets and the government of Iran, which is acting with them. And he is giving a message to the good people of Iran and to the good people of the world, good people of America, good people of Pakistan, good people of everywhere. He's sending a message that we will not tolerate the CIA's and the Illuminati's control of Iran, and we are going to arrange for a real people's government in Iran, where the people are free to choose their government, which has not happened since 1953, when the CIA removed the democratically elected prime minister. So you may not believe this, but you have to do a lot of research and study and then you will realize that what I'm saying is true. So this is really what's behind. President Trump does not really want a war with Iran. He wants to threaten the CIA, has been controlling large parts of the Iranian government, and he's replacing them with real good Iranian people who are real patriots of Iran and will not be servants of the one world order. And they will replace this very despotic government of Iran, repressive government, with a good Islamic government, a real Islamic government. The so-called Islamic government in Iran is not really Islamic. It is because Islam means love and peace and truth and justice. This Iranian government has not been acting lovingly or justly or truthfully. So, just as what has happened in Pakistan, by the mercy of Allah and the agents of the CIA, the agents of the One World Order, or maybe we shouldn't say agents, but people who were bribed by and were working with them and destroying Pakistan, really, they have been removed, and Imran Khan, who is a good man, has replaced them, although the evil people are fighting against him. The world media is trying to portray him in a very bad light, but he's actually a good man. So the same thing is now going to be happening in Iran. We will see. That's what's really going on in this Iranian and American war. So please forgive me if I've shocked you by this brief analysis. I haven't provided any proof, but you will see in due course of time that this is really what's happening. Okay, Abdo Shoko Nagi also asks, Sir, I have a very important question. What if those aliens are actually just jinn? Some of the aliens are, I would say, jinn, but others are what I would call angels. They're very angelic. They're very loving. The most wonderful people I have met are aliens. They are farishtas. They're angels. They're very angelic, loving, kind, God-loving as well as humanity-loving and all creation-loving. Very, very sweet, merciful, kind, generous people. They're not jinns. They are, if anything, angels. So we have to understand there are good extraterrestrials and there are bad extraterrestrials. Just like there are good human beings and bad human beings. There are good angels and bad satanic jinns also. And there are also good jinns. Some jinns are good too. But so extraterrestrials are just the same. There are good ones and bad ones, not only jinn bad ones. Okay. All right, I think we're going to bring this to an end because there's been a lot of good questions. Ibn Raza has a question, why America create any time or every year started war or create war panic? Well, two reasons. In the past, because the American government was under the control of the CIA and of other selfish and evil beings, not only evil people in the CIA, there were also good people, many good CIA agents, but the controllers of the CIA were very selfish and evil people, and they created many wars. Libya, Syria, Iraq, all these wars were created for the selfish gain, not really of America either, but of the controllers of America, former controllers of America. And they removed governments which were better than what happened after they were removed. Saddam Hussein may not have been the best of all men, but he was better than what happened in Iraq after he was removed. Gaddafi may not have been the best of all men, but he was a really good ruler of Libya, and the people of Libya were happy under his rule. Despite some negative things about him, he was very, very good ruler, and the country was doing very well economically, as in many ways. And America removed him, the CIA removed him, and there was chaos in Libya. So in the past, this is at least my explanation of what America has been doing, creating wars all over the world. Many smaller wars also. The CIA has been responsible for creating wars which were not for the good of the people of that country in which the war happened. Now, I am claiming this is changing. And the real purpose that President Trump has, although he's an American patriot, he's really an American patriot. He's not working for the New World Order. He's not working for the Illuminati. He is actually fighting against them. And he is trying to remove their influence from America. And he could not do it by himself. But good people in the American military are working with him. They are getting rid of the bad people in the CIA. They're getting rid of the bad people throughout the American government, in the Justice Department, in the FBI, in the State Department, in Congress. All the servants of the evil Illuminati are being removed by Trump and the good people in the American military. And so now when Trump is threatening war, it's not like in North Korea and like in Iran, it's not for the good of for the benefit of the world order, of the so-called New World Order people. It's for the benefit of all the people of the world, for the benefit of the American people, for the benefit of the North Korean people, for the benefit of the Iranian people. But you won't read this in the mass media. The mass media is controlled still, mostly, by the Illuminati. They're controlled by these very evil, selfish, and wealthy and powerful people like the international bankster families, like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. They still control most of the mass media. So the international media is also against Trump, like they're against Imran Khan. So they present him in a very bad light. But Trump himself is threatening war, but he doesn't really want war. He is actually threatening the evil people in Iran, in North Korea, all over the world, in America too. He's creating war against the mass media in America. He's calling them fake news, which they mostly are, because they're Illuminati-controlled news. So this is what's going on, in my opinion. There is a great war going on, not only in Iran or North Korea, but all over the world. The war is going on between the forces of good, which President Trump, although he's not 100% a good man, he has many weaknesses and problems himself. I did not vote for him in the election, but I think that he is basically working for a much better purpose than the American governments in the past, which have been controlled by the evil CIA-dominated forces in America. So Trump is fighting against them. So the war panic that he's creating is different than in the past. The mass media won't tell you this. They want you to think Trump is an evil man also. But I'm convinced that Trump, despite his weaknesses and despite his mistakes, he is actually basically a good, God-fearing man. Okay. Shehryar Khan, but how are you so sure? I'm not sure if you're talking about extraterrestrials. I'm sure about extraterrestrials because I've met extraterrestrials myself. Almost all the ones I met were very good, kind, loving people. Many of them look just like human beings, somewhat different than human beings, or quite different than human beings, but most of them are good. Some of them definitely are not quite so good, but I have been fortunate not to meet some of the really horrible ones. I've never met some of the really satanic ones. So I'm sure that there are many different types of extraterrestrials. I've seen them myself. I've talked with some of them, and they're mostly very good, the ones I've known. Or if you mean how am I so sure about what I've been talking about Trump and the CIA, I'm sure, I feel sure myself, but I don't have evidence. I've not seen myself with my own eyes evidence of what I'm saying, but I feel it in my heart. I feel convinced that this is really what Trump's doing. I disagree with his policies on the environment, fracking especially. I disagree with his ideas about Islam. I believe he's got a wrong understanding about Islam, but that's not surprising. Most people in the world do, even most Muslims do. So I can't say for sure that I have evidence about that, but I'm convinced of it myself. So I'm spreading that information, what I understand, even without a lot of evidence. But I think more and more evidence is coming out. So Ibn Raza, in the past CIA feed Saddam Hussein and Saddam Hussein out of control and give you one sentence and you search on YouTube Saddam Hussein, okay, Muzalim, search on YouTube. He is very, very dangerous, evil, for Shia community. Search if you have time. Yes, Saddam Hussein was originally created by the CIA. They put him in power. They thought that he would be their man, and he did do their work for a while. But then they lost control of him. Saddam Hussein felt that he could escape from the control of the CIA, who had originally put him in power, and then they were very angry, and so they attacked Iraq and just took over the country and killed him. Uh, who knows what really happened, but that's what they say. And you're right that originally Saddam Hussein was fed by the CIA, was created by the CIA, and when they could not control him, they got rid of him. The same thing has happened in other cases, just like President Zia of Pakistan. Originally, the CIA put him in power. They were responsible for the killing of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, really. The CIA was behind that. But then, being a good Muslim, Zia finally realized he could not go along with the CIA's program in Afghanistan, and he wanted to create a strong Muslim state in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, and so the CIA killed him. They ended up killing him, just like Saddam Hussein. So Saddam Hussein was a very dangerous man, but he got out of the CIA's control, and they didn't like that, so they got rid of him. Similarly, they put Zia in control. Zia was not a bad man, in my opinion. He certainly did some very bad things, and he had some wrong ideas, in my opinion. But finally, when he didn't agree to go along with what the CIA wanted him to do, in Afghanistan specifically, so they killed him. So if you think that Saddam Hussein was dangerous, evil for Shia community, yes, Saddam Hussein wanted